Hi, thank you for joining me here today. And I think we are recording right now. I prefer to have these sessions live on YouTube. However, I can't find a software which allows me to blur my background or replace it with a virtual background yet. I can't find a software like that yet. So right now I'm recording via Zoom, so it's not live. And until if you know of a software or something which allows me to blur my background and I don't have to pay for it because I'm not ready to pay for this software yet, you can let me know. I tried things like OBS, but it doesn't allow me to remove my background or blur my background. So that's out for now. So right now, until I figure all these things out, I will be recording using Zoom. Okay, so enough of all this introduction right now. For today, I want to talk about how we can get comfortable with mistakes and failure. And the reason why we need to get comfortable with mistakes and failure is that if you are a business owner or if you are thinking of starting a business, mistakes and failures are going to be part of our journey. And I think I mentioned this in my previous live stream video. You can go to my YouTube channel and see my most recent live stream. So I was talking about the three signs of fear of failure. I think that's the name of the video. So in that video, I referred to why we need to have a very healthy relationship with failure and mistakes if you want to be an entrepreneur or if you want to start a business or even as someone who wants to excel in your career in general. Having a healthy relationship with failure is something that we need to develop if we want to achieve really big goals. And so you might be asking me, how do we get comfortable with failure? In general, many of us will not like making mistakes or to quote unquote fail in any way. I mean, sometimes we might think of mistakes as a waste of time, quote unquote waste of time. It makes us embarrassed. It makes us look stupid. It makes us look inexperienced or unskilled. So there are many reasons why we try to avoid mistakes where possible. However, if we want to, like I mentioned, if we want to achieve some big goals, we need to be comfortable with making mistakes and being resilient every time we fall or make or experience challenges or obstacles. All right, so there are some ways that we can adopt in order to get comfortable with mistakes. And one of the ways for us to get comfortable with mistakes is to actually feel the discomfort instead of repressing it or avoiding it in any way. So if you feel this discomfort with regards to making mistakes or failure, this discomfort, this unease, this fear, or other negative feelings, it helps to actually feel that emotion and let that emotion run through you and feel it fully instead of repressing it or trying to avoid it. So some of us have this approach where we try to avoid any situation or circumstance which will evoke that feeling of unease or discomfort. Whereas if you want to get comfortable with mistakes, what we can do is do the opposite, which is to feel the discomfort. And when we let emotions run through ourselves, run through our bodies and nervous systems, the fear and the discomfort actually goes away really quickly. If you realize that, if you try it, you might realize that these emotions will just will get away really quickly as compared to repressing it or pretending it doesn't exist or denying it in any way. So, feeling the discomfort in your body and truly accepting and embracing it is one way for you to get comfortable with mistakes and failure. And another way for you to get comfortable with making mistakes is to keep trying new things. And I know that sometimes we like to do things the same way because we don't like to waste our time and stumble over mistakes and correcting mistakes and making ourselves look embarrassed or anything like that. So we tend to do things the same way for some of us. And I think one way to get comfortable with mistakes and failure is to keep trying new things. When we try new things, of course, we are going to make mistakes here and there. I mean, when we do something for the first time, of course we are not going to get it done perfectly. We are going to stumble on mistakes, and we are going to make little errors. So when we try many new things, chances are we're going to make many mistakes, and that's how we learn, and that's how we learn many lessons. So trying new things is also another way for you to get comfortable with failure. And every time I'm sorry, my nose is itching. I think I'm having an allergic reaction to dust in general. I'm not sure. But and anyway, let's move on. So when we keep doing new things, we keep making mistakes, and that's how we learn. So don't avoid trying new things. Don't avoid new opportunities or new chances or new basically don't avoid new opportunities for you to try or explore new things in your career or in your business. That is how you grow, and that is how you can find out and discover more things about yourself, and discover more about your talents, and discover more about your skills. So do new things. That is going to make you very confident, and that's going to make you very resilient towards mistakes. And I've read a book before, and one of the authors is an expert on perfectionism. And what she mentioned is that another way for you to get really comfortable with mistakes and to avoid or to reduce perfectionism is to intentionally make small, harmless mistakes. So this is going to be really scary for some of us, but the key word here is to do harmless mistakes. So for example, if you're someone who cannot stand having spelling errors in your emails, for example, when you're writing emails to your subscribers, you don't like to have spelling errors or errors here and there. So you can challenge yourself and include a few spelling errors here and there and see how you feel about it. You send it out, and of course, you're going to freak out and feel very uncomfortable, probably for the next few days, if you're a perfectionist. And then you will probably realize that most of your readers may not even realize the mistake, or they may not even, they may not even realize it, or they may just forgive you for it, or they will just assume that it's an honest mistake, and they will just forget about it. So it's not a big deal. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not going to be as big a deal as we think it is. So not creating such a big deal out of mistakes is also one way for you to be comfortable with making mistakes, and also with failure of any sort. So if you are brave enough to do this, go ahead and do it. Intentionally make small harmless mistakes and see what happens, and see how comfortable you're not going to be comfortable, but see how you can expand your comfort level when it comes to making mistakes. So that's what I'm trying to share here. And another method for you to be comfortable with mistakes is to remind yourself of the past challenges that you have faced. And this will remind you of how capable you actually are. So perhaps in the past, you have experienced really big challenges, for example, failing in your business, or losing a job, or even losing a loved one. And how do you cope with those challenges in the past? And you will realize that you have the capability to cope with many relatively smaller failures and smaller mistakes in life. So we are, of course, as you work and as you run your business, you are going to run into many hurdles, and you're going to face many roadblocks and obstacles. That is just part of the journey. What you can do is to remind yourself of the strength that you had in the past when you were trying to overcome a really big challenge in your life. And that's how you recall how strong and capable and talented and skilled you actually are, and you are probably not even aware of it. You're not even aware of how strong you actually are. So when you recall all these past episodes, you realize that maybe making a small mistake here and there is not that big a deal. And one thing about people who do not fear making mistakes or have a very healthy relationship with mistakes is that they do not tie their self-worth with their achievements. So if they do something wrong, wrong, I mean, something which is, harmless, relatively harmless, something wrong which is relatively harmless, they don't let it affect their self-esteem, they don't let it affect their confidence, and they don't attach their self-worth to that. So some of us feel really embarrassed or ashamed when we make mistakes because we attach our self-worth to our mistakes and achievements. So loosen that and and try not to let your mistakes and failures define your self-worth or define your identity. So that's point number 4. So I've shared 4 ways for you to get comfortable with failure. And I hope you find this really helpful. I would love to continue, but I'm having an allergic reaction right now, and my nose is feeling uncomfortable right now. I think maybe I'm allergic to dust around my area. So I'm going to stop the video here, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.